101 in communication stroke public relations. You know this, for others it may be interesting. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, the first slide, because John and I know each other from when we worked at Amnesty International together, where fundraising and communications didn't always synchronise the way that they could, although they were doing it a lot better by the time that we left. So in time-honoured fashion, I'm going to start off with a definition, a little bit of an intro, and then ending up with some concrete tips that you can use as fundraisers. You'll hear me using the word communications, public relations. I'm interchanging those. In the sector, we don't introduce ourselves as public relations professionals, because when we do that, people go, oh, like Max Clifford, so you're going to spin my news, are you? And we're like, I'm sorry, we're representing charities, we're trying to get their message out, we're trying to get people to understand what you're doing, and you need to do that, because when that happens, when people understand what you're doing, when you folks come along and then ask for money and try to build relationships and get legacies, people know what you are and what you do, and that makes life a lot easier. So I'm not going to read slides because you'll be asleep before the tea break. Communications is not just about sending out press releases, and if that's what you think it is, you need to change and understand what it's around, because you will be missing a trick that will help you, because we work about reputation and helping you understand who are the people that you need to be talking to, what do you need to be saying to them, and why. Because where it goes wrong is where communications and fundraisers work together, and there's a thing, we're going to hold an event, it'll probably be about raising money, and it might raise our profile. It's got to be absolutely businesslike and crystal clear before you ever step outside your organisation, so that you know what you're going after for and why, and what is it that you'll judge a success at the end. And it's all terribly academic now, because we've followed our marketing colleagues, and there's their reference. So there are different disciplines. I'm saying it's much more than just writing press releases. So what is it? So people like me and departments I've worked in, we're looking at the organisation's reputation, because if you get a reputation for being quite nice but a bit amateurish, nobody's going to be inspired to give you 50 quid, let alone 5 million. We all get into crises for different reasons. You know, you get somebody on your strategic board, or you get involved with a celebrity ends up sniffing coke or gets exposed in the tabloids. All those sorts of things don't only damage the organisation, they damage your ability to raise money for it. And that applies regardless of your size. And I'm really interested in Carl and his colleagues in the project here, because you're on a time-limited thing and you're right at the start. Really important that there's all sorts of considerations and the dreaded risk assessments done before you get going. We do press releases, that's part of our thing. What in the trade is called press agentry, publicity, media relations, where there is either a department or maybe somebody working in your organisation who's given responsibility for that, for proactively talking to the media and reacting to them when they come and say, why have you got people out in the street asking us for money for a musical performance? We're in the middle of a recession. Don't you understand that the money is required for sick children or something that's much more important? They come along with you these judgmental, off-the-wall things that you don't agree with. You have to have people who are trained and understand how you deal with that, and not sounding defensive would be the first thing. And issue management is when something's in the news that you could relate to what it is that you're trying to do. There's a skill, there's a particular way of doing that, so to do it. So I'm going to give you two definitions on crisis and issue in a moment, because quite often they get confused. And other parts of communications, where if you're working in commercial organisations, for example, it's about building relations with investors. In communications, we're helping fundraisers and the other people who are involved in an organisation to have a dialogue and to get to know and build relationships with other people outside their organisation. It can be so that they can further, you know, legislation changes. It can be so that they raise money. It's for a wide range of things. And sure, we write press releases, which is the next one, because that's one of the tools. Sorry, let me just get there. But they're only a means to an end. If you only come to communications when you've it all decided and all done and all your strategic board signed up, you'll have missed a trick. So the kind of things that we use to do all these things are research studies, as it says, and things. If you want to be out there and to be seen and to be heard and to be seen to be credible and worth supporting, you have to be saying something. Not just anything, not just, well, I just read this in the paper this morning, and I'm sure we could say something about topic X, something that you really do have something to comment on. And the more things that you can quote outside of your own organisation. Survey of, I don't know, 10,000 British males said that this is what they think. Organisations who are working on things like some of the male cancers use that so that they can speak credibly to that audience. It's all about understanding who you're trying to talk to and what will resonate with them proposing. Now for fundraisers, I know this because I've worked with John Bagley for a long time, they'll go, those communications people, they're such spoil sports. You know, we come up with these brilliant ideas and they always tell us why it won't work. I would say we're a voice of caution. Once we are in with you and we understand the value of something, we'll really help you get it out there. These other things are tools that we use. Op-eds doesn't mean an opinion editorial, it just means that it's written by somebody opposite the editorial page is what it actually stands for. And it's written by somebody outside of the editorial board of the paper in which you're reading it. And then for those of you who are doing things, I'm particularly interested in the Orlando stuff about taking people on what we call press facility visits, so that you have, if you can afford a flight for the journalist to come and see firsthand the impact on those children of that flight. Because I take Ibby's point earlier, it's very hard to show the impact, and that's why some of the trusts won't fund you. But when they come and they see it and they hear it and they feel it, you have supporters. And when people read about that, then when someone's coming along and saying, we're running an appeal, we'd like you to be involved, they say, didn't I read something about that flight? Because those human interest stories stick in the mind. And we do all the very practical things like running the press conferences. Just want to do a quick thing on that. I said that one of the things that we do in an organisation is look after crises and issues. And these are words that get overused. I mean, some people come into work and if they miss the bus, it's a crisis. A crisis is really something that damages your organisation, can actually put it out of business. So I've worked in Plan International, which is an international children's development NGO. And one of the things, and it's common to all those kind of organisations, the thing that could absolutely sunk us, if we had been shown not to be looking after children, you know, for example, there being organisations in other parts of the world where paedophile rings have infiltrated the organisation and got access to the children. That's the stuff that is really, you know, you've lost your credibility, you can no longer function. That's a crisis. And an issue is just something that's out there now. You know, if we looked on the blogs this morning, we read what's in the papers, anything that's not to do with AV, I'm sure there's something on which you can take a position. If there's a legitimate thing that you have to say, golden rule of communications, if you haven't got anything to say, don't say it. Don't try and make it up, because many are the press offices that churn out press releases on principle 3 a week and they're not actually saying anything. And what happens to those is that they go in the bin and the media get tired of hearing them. So when they do come up with something valid and interesting, it's like, they're always sending out stuff that's not interesting. 2 final slides, if I may. This is the tips. I'm somewhat facetiously referring to how communications and fundraisers work. You should make your communications people, or people who are around you who may not be staff but doing communications, work for you. Get to know them, get to know what they're doing. Because if they're doing research in a particular area that supports what you're doing as a fundraiser, you need to know about that. And the chances are it may get missed. So if you've got a particular thing that you're working on in a particular area, a particular project, I'm thinking of our colleagues here with the theatrical event, find out what they can do, support. And also have a discussion with them about what are other organisations that are like us doing, what are their communications people doing. And if you're reading things in the newspaper saying, wow, they're doing this and we're in the same area, why aren't we in the newspaper? Have a not in one of those accusatory, why aren't we in there, but one of those, what could we do together to get us there? And similarly, because we're so democratic, you need to make fundraising work for them. So what we really want is that you tell us when you're thinking about your next activity, not when you're doing it, not when everybody's signed everything off and it's just a matter of handing over the check. Tell us when you're thinking about it, because we can come in there and say, have you thought of this? Many heads and all that sort of stuff. And get us involved in the planning. That's not us saying that we'd like to be fundraisers, because let me tell you, we don't want to be fundraisers. But we want to make sure that you get as much impact in the outside world for all this work that you're doing. So many, many times, to move to the final point, it's about give us as much information, give the person who's dealing with your press relations or media relations as much information as possible as soon as you have it, or as soon as you think it's coming along. Because quite often, the businesses and the funders say, oh yeah, did we mention that we've got Danny Minogue or whoever it is? And no, that would have been fairly crucial. That would have been the thing that would have got us the attention. Or fundraisers may not always know what would make a good news story, and they'll say, well, we didn't tell you that because we didn't think it was newsy. And we would say in a very kindly and supportive and friendly way, have a chat with us and we'll let you know whether it's newsworthy, and then we'll do that work for you and get you out there. That's it. I'm even under 10 minutes. As I say, little quick snapshot of what it is we do, what it isn't, how we can work together, and some suggestions on tips, recognising that I come from a background where there are communications departments that you can rely on, and not all of you have that, but you will have people on your board or your friends who can carry out that role for you, and hopefully that was helpful.